does a quarterback with elite stats, record-breaking performances, and the backing of one of the most iconic names in football fall all the way to pick 144? Because this wasn't just a draft slide, this was a public humiliation, broadcast live, dissected by analysts, and now possibly the foundation of a $100 million lawsuit. Shedeur Sanders wasn't just passed over. He was erased. Son of Hall of Famer Deion Coach Prime Sanders. Shedeur entered the 2025 NFL Draft as one of the most talked-about QBs in the nation. He led college football in completion percentage, shattered school records, and was projected almost unanimously to go in the first or second round. But when his name finally got called, it was late. 5th round, Cleveland, pick number 144. No champagne, no celebration, just stunned silence and cameras that quietly cut away. And that's when the whisper started. Was this a message? Did the league blackball Shedeur? Is the NFL punishing the Sanders family for refusing to play by the rules? Now, insiders say the Sanders camp is preparing for war, with emails, recordings, and receipts. What began as a draft day disappointment could explode into one of the biggest legal battles in NFL history. Because if the allegations are true, this wasn't a coincidence. It was a coordinated takedown. And the Sanders family? They're not going quietly. The NFL Draft is supposed to be a dream, a celebration of talent, a once-in-a-lifetime moment. But for Shedeur Sanders, it turned into a nightmare. This wasn't some late-round sleeper story. For months, Shedeur was projected as a first-round pick, at worst, early second. He was polished, productive, and high-profile. Every sports outlet had him ranked among the top quarterbacks in the nation. His name was everywhere, and yet, round after round, pick after pick, 32 teams looked the other way. Not once, not twice, 4 times they passed on him. And by day 3 of the draft, the buzz turned to confusion, then disbelief, then outrage. When the Cleveland Browns finally selected him at pick 144, it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a statement. At his private draft party, the cameras turned away. The champagne stayed sealed. No smiles, no cheers, just silence. It was supposed to be the moment he'd waited for his entire life. Instead, it went viral for all the wrong reasons. Soon after, Deion Sanders reportedly told those close to him, "They blackballed my son." At first, people chalked it up to emotion, a father lashing out. But then, something shifted. Whispers turned into leaks. And the deeper you look, the less it seems like Shedeur was overlooked, and the more it feels like he was targeted. Shedeur Sanders didn't fall. What if he was pushed? Behind the scenes, the Sanders camp began digging, and what they claimed to have found could shake the NFL to its core. According to multiple insiders, a private investigator hired by the Sanders family uncovered internal communications between NFL team owners, emails, texts, quiet conversations that never made the headlines until now. The alleged messages show a pattern. Team executives warning each other about Shedeur's media baggage, brand distraction, and the so-called prime effect. But it gets worse. Some of the language reportedly goes beyond concern and straight into coordination. Back-channel whispers, agreements to avoid drafting him unless absolutely necessary, and even suggestions to let him fall as a way to protect the shield. Multiple media outlets are now reviewing these findings. Nothing's been made public yet, but according to the Sanders legal team, the evidence paints a clear picture: collusion. The draft wasn't just about talent. It was about politics, power, control, and a message. Because when Deion Sanders told the world he'd protect his son from bad organizations, he stepped over a line the NFL guards fiercely: obedience. He didn't play the game their way, and allegedly, they punished him for it. One owner reportedly said, "You're not just drafting Shedeur, you're inheriting the entire Prime brand." And for some of them, that was too much to handle. This wasn't just about Shedeur. It was never just about Shedeur. From the moment Deion Sanders stepped into the spotlight as Coach Prime, he wasn't interested in playing by the NFL's unspoken rules. He recruited loud, he won louder, and he didn't hide the fact that he was building a brand, not just a team. So when Deion started hinting that his son wouldn't play for just any franchise, people listened. He even admitted on camera that if the situation wasn't right, they'd pull an Eli Manning and refuse to suit up. But where Eli's family operated behind the scenes, Deion did it all publicly. That rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. Sources close to the league claim Deion's bold stance triggered a quiet rebellion. Owners didn't like being told who they could draft or who could say no to them, and allegedly, that's when the whispers of sabotage began. Reports suggest that during Super Bowl week, private conversations between owners referenced Deion's comments directly. His confidence was viewed not as leadership, but as arrogance. His control over Shedeur's path was seen as a threat, and in a league built on hierarchy, where the power structure is never questioned, that was enough to flip the narrative. Suddenly, Shedeur wasn't a future franchise quarterback. He was a problem. The NFL Combine is where futures are made or destroyed. For Shedeur Sanders, it was a gamble. He skipped the Senior Bowl. He didn't throw or work out at the Combine. The message was clear. Let the tape speak for itself. But in NFL circles, skipping those opportunities is rarely seen as confidence. It's seen as arrogance. And once Shedeur entered team meetings behind closed doors, things only got worse. According to insiders, teams tested him hard. Coaches queued up his worst plays and asked for explanations. One team reportedly challenged him on a busted read, and Shedeur's answer? "Maybe I'm not the guy for you." That didn't go over well. In another meeting, teams allegedly planted intentional errors in their film installs just to see if he'd catch them. He didn't. When called out, sources say he pushed back again. Not disrespectfully, but not deferentially either. And in a room full of decision-makers used to control, that rubbed some people the wrong way. To the public, none of this was known, but to the teams, the narrative had shifted. Shedeur was no longer the composed, high IQ leader they'd expected. Instead, whispers began. Entitled, hard to coach, doesn't take criticism. Fair or not, these labels started sticking. And when the interviews ended, some teams reportedly walked away saying one thing: he's talented, but he's not worth the headache. What happened after the Combine wasn't just silence, it was strategy. Almost overnight, Shedeur's image began to shift in the media, not through press conferences or interviews, but through anonymous leaks. He's immature, doesn't want to compete. Entitled, report after report painted him not as a top-tier quarterback, but as a liability. None of it was official, none of it was sourced, but the timing was impossible to ignore. Now, the Sanders legal team believes those leaks weren't random. They were intentional, targeted, and orchestrated to poison his stock right before the draft. Not based on skill, not based on results, but to control the narrative and tank his value. And it worked. While media analysts continued ranking him among the top quarterbacks in the class, not a single general manager stepped up to dispute the smear. No public praise, no clarifications, just silence. Insiders now say that silence was calculated, because Shedeur Sanders wasn't being judged solely as a player. He was being managed as a public figure. And when he didn't fit the mold, the machine kicked in. Behind closed doors, character attacks replaced scouting reports. And in front of the cameras, analysts began echoing the same vague criticisms. He's not ready. He's not a leader. He's not the guy. But for the Sanders family, this wasn't media analysis. It was reputation warfare. And they were planning to let it slide. The NFL may have thought this would blow over. It won't. According to multiple sources, the Sanders family is preparing to file a massive lawsuit. Not just against the league itself, but potentially against specific team owners, general managers, media outlets, and scouting firms. The claims? Collusion, defamation, and loss of future earnings. Early reports suggest the legal team has obtained private communications, emails, text messages, even recorded phone calls that allegedly show a coordinated effort to diminish Shedur's draft value. Not based on talent, but on perception, politics, and image control. The draft day slide didn't just cost Shedur millions. It damaged a brand. It sent a message. And now, that message is being sent back with legal firepower. The lawsuit is expected to seek over $100 million in damages. That includes lost salary, endorsements, future quarterback investment, and reputational harm. Not just to Shedur, but to Deion Sanders as a public figure, recruiter, and coach. And if what the Sanders family claims to have is real, this won't be a quiet lawsuit. It could explode into one of the biggest scandals in NFL history. A Deflategate meets Kaepernick-level firestorm. Behind the scenes, some NFL owners are reportedly panicking. One anonymous executive was even quoted saying, "If they sue, they're done. He'll never get another snap." But according to those close to the Sanders family, that's exactly the risk they're willing to take. On paper, the numbers are brutal. As a projected top 10 pick, Shedur Sanders was expected to sign a rookie contract worth upwards of $35 million, with guaranteed money, endorsement opportunities, and long-term franchise potential. Instead, the fifth-round contract he signed with Cleveland is worth just $4.6 million, with minimal guarantees. That's over $30 million gone before he's even taken a snap. But this story isn't just about numbers. It's about power, legacy, and pride. If the allegations are true, this wasn't just a financial hit. It was a calculated takedown. A message to Deion Sanders that no matter how much noise he makes in college football, the NFL still decides who gets to sit at the table. And the ripple effects stretch far beyond Shedur. Deion's credibility as a coach, recruiter, and brand builder took a hit. Parents and players watched this unfold, and some may now wonder if aligning with the Sanders name comes with a price. The NFL, meanwhile, is walking a tightrope. Publicly, they've dismissed everything as speculation. But behind the scenes, there's fear. If the lawsuit moves forward, and if the Sanders family really does have smoking gun evidence, multiple franchises, executives, and media partners could be dragged into the spotlight. This isn't just a PR problem, it's a potential crisis. Because if a family with this much influence can be silenced, who's really in control? What happened to Shedur Sanders wasn't just a draft day slide, it was a signal. A reminder that even at the highest levels of talent, power still pulls the strings. One of the most statistically impressive quarterbacks in the country, high IQ, elite accuracy, primetime pedigree, was left sitting for 3 painful days while lesser names walked the stage. And now, with lawsuits looming and a legal storm brewing, the NFL might be forced to answer a question it's long avoided. Was this about football or control? Because if the Sanders family really does have the proof, if the texts, emails, and recordings exist, this story could become something far bigger than just one player's fall. It could rip open the curtain on how much the league values obedience over originality, silence over swagger, and structure over stars who speak their minds. And the scariest part? This might not be the first time something like this has happened. So what do you think? Was Shedur Sanders unfairly targeted? Did the NFL protect the shield at the expense of a rising star? Or is this all just noise from a family that refused to play by the rules? Let us know in the comments. Like if you believe talent should speak louder than politics. And subscribe if you want to follow the story as it unfolds. Because make no mistake, this isn't over. Not by a long shot.